Have you heard about DePIN? It stands for Decentralized Physical Infrastructure Networks. And right now, everyone's talking about it like it's the next huge thing in crypto. But, is it really all it's cracked up to be? Today, we're going to peel back the layers on this one and really dig into the growing pains that could either make or break this whole revolutionary idea. Let's get right into it.
Just imagine for a second, a world where you're not just a customer of, say, your internet provider, but you're an actual owner. A world where you have a real say in how your data gets stored and managed. That's the big promise of DePIN. And it's a pretty radical idea, right? It's really challenging the old way of doing things, and you can see why it's capturing the imagination of so many people.
Okay, but let's pump the brakes for a second. Because, like with any groundbreaking tech, there's always a flip side. DePIN is running up against some pretty massive hurdles right now. Hurdles that could either totally derail the whole thing, or maybe push it to innovate in ways we can't even imagine yet. So let's take a look at what these challenges actually are.
All right, first up, we've got the biggest technical challenge of them all, the scaling bottleneck. This is that classic good problem to have, where a great idea starts to actually work, and suddenly thousands of people are piling in. The problem is, sometimes that success can break everything.
This right here is the heart of the matter. The very thing that makes DePIN so powerful, the fact that it's decentralized, well, that's also its biggest vulnerability. Think about it. With thousands of different people contributing, every single little action has to be checked and verified on the blockchain, and that can turn into a logistical nightmare fast. So you end up with this chain reaction, this kind of vicious cycle. More people join, which is great, but that means way more transactions, which then completely overwhelms the network. And what happens then? Well, fees shoot through the roof, and everything slows to a crawl. For users, that's a massive turnoff.
And listen, this isn't just some theory, this is real. Helium, which is probably one of the most famous DePIN projects out there, ran smack into this scaling wall. As they got more popular, their own blockchain just could not handle the load.
So what do? Well, Helium made a really bold move. They completely migrated their whole operation over to Solana, which is a blockchain that's literally built for high speeds and super low transaction costs. It's designed to handle massive scale. And that really shows you the crucial lesson here for any other DePIN project. You've got to have the right infrastructure if you're planning to grow big.
Okay, let's move on to our second big challenge, and you'll see how this builds on the last one. It's what we're calling the token tightrope. And this is all about the economic engine that powers these networks. It is a super delicate balancing act. This chart really nails the core dilemma. See, to get people to join and help build a network, projects basically hand out tokens like candy. But here's the catch. If there aren't enough real people actually using the network services, you just end up with a massive supply of tokens and no demand. And, well, you know what happens next. The price just tanks. It's Econ 101, really.
It's kind of like building a ghost town. The old way of doing things was all about rewarding people for building the houses. That's the supply side. But nobody was moving in. The new model, which you're seeing from projects like Akash and Render, is way smarter. It's about building a living, breathing community first by tying the rewards to actual, real usage, the demand side. Yeah, it might be a bit slower to get going, but you're building a city that's actually meant to last.
And that brings us to our final hurdle. And honestly, this might be the most unpredictable one of them all, the regulatory maze. This is what happens when these cool, decentralized digital ideas start bumping up against heavily regulated real-world infrastructure. And that's the million-dollar question for every single one of these projects, isn't it? At what point does your cool little community-run network get big enough to pop up on the government's radar?
Well, you can bet that governments are going to be keeping a very close eye on a few specific areas. Things like using wireless spectrum, how much energy the network is consuming, and of course, data privacy. Those are all going to be huge. For these DePIN projects, it's like walking a tightrope. One wrong step and you could find yourself in a world of regulatory trouble.
But, we got to put this in perspective. Every single disruptive technology, think about the early internet or even ride-sharing apps, they all went through this messy, confusing phase with regulators. That friction, it's a totally normal, maybe even necessary part of the journey from being a niche idea to something everyone uses. So after going through all these hurdles, what's the big takeaway here? Well, it's that what we're seeing isn't the end of DePIN. It's an evolution. These challenges are actually forcing the entire space to get smarter and a whole lot stronger. So let me be super clear about this. The scaling problems, the tricky token economics, the regulatory question marks, None of this means that DePIN is doomed to fail. Not at all.
Instead, what this all shows is that the industry is growing up. It's moving past that early, naive optimism and is now tackling real-world engineering and economic problems. Seriously, overcoming these exact growing pains is how DePIN becomes more robust, more sustainable, and truly ready for prime time.
So where does all this leave us? Well, think about this for a second. AI is absolutely ravenous for two things: data and computing power. If DePIN can actually get through these growing pains and solve these big challenges, it could be the key that unlocks the true potential of artificial intelligence on a massive scale. So the real question is, are we ready for that future? Because the race is on and the stakes have never been higher.
Like, subscribe, and stay tuned. The future of the internet is unfolding in real time,